Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to Wobble and Josh Sports. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider to like the content and subscribe to the channel. But if you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. This weekend, Beanie for Brain Cancer round. I think it's been in the NRL for maybe a decade, maybe a little bit more than that now. So it is a tradition these days, and let's get stuck into round 15 for 2024. Round 15 starts this Thursday from Shark Park, PointsBet Stadium. Cronulla Sutherland host the Dolphins. On Sportsbet, the Sharks are $1.35, whereas the Dolphins are $3.25. This will be the Dolphins' first ever trip to Shark Park. And while the Sharks are undeniably, they should be the favourites, I do think that's a little bit big on the Dolphins. I think there's a bit of value there because even though the Dolphins have got a couple of outs and the Sharks have got a couple of ins, this does reek of a danger game, especially considering you factor in the last time these two sides met. It was the only time they've met. It was at Magic Round last year, and it was the Dolphins who upset the Sharks big time. But this is a completely different set of circumstances, obviously. For the Sharks, Braden Hamlin-Uele and Nico Hines return into the lineup. Hamlin-Uele comes off the bench, meaning that Hahu Kapua and Atkinson, they are now into the reserves. Whereas for the Dolphins, Felice Kofusi, Hamiso Tapuai-Fidow, they are in. Unfortunately, it seems like Jesse Bromwich's season may be over, thus his career might be over due to, I think it was a pec or a bicep injury that he sustained in the early minutes against that game against the Canberra Raiders a couple of weeks ago. And Anthony Milford is also out of this contest as well. But that means Cody Nikorima comes back in. He will be in the 5/8 position, and Felice Kofusi will start in the prop position, and that means Kurt Donahue will retain his spot in jersey 17. This should be a really good game. Dolphins, I think they're going to come down with a huge purpose. Sharks, they had a fantastic victory against the Brisbane Broncos last weekend. It should be a really good game, but I'll play it safe and I'll go the Cronulla Sharks to win this game 1-12. Shifting into Friday night footy now, and game number 1 of 2 is from GIO Stadium. The Canberra Raiders host the North Queensland Cowboys. Raiders are $1.65. Cowboys are $2.25. The Raiders coming off of a bye and a Golden Point victory against the Dolphins up there at KO Stadium. That was their last game 2 weeks ago. We don't talk about what happened to the Cowboys last weekend. For the Canberra Raiders, Hudson Young comes back in, and that's pretty much it for the Canberra Raiders. They are pretty much the same 1-17. And just a fact about the Canberra Raiders, or a stat about the Raiders in GIO Stadium, they've lost their past 2 games by conceding 40 points, and they have not won at GIO Stadium since they just defeated the Gold Coast Titans 21-20 in the second week of April. So it's been 2 months since they've won in front of their home fans, and the home fans are going to have to wait another week or 2 before they see another victory at GIO Stadium, because the Cowboys, they're rolling down into the nation's capital with Murray Taulagi, Reece Robson. They're both back. Jordan McLean, he's touch and go, but he has been named, and we missed Reece Robson so much last weekend. Jason Taumalolo is starting at lock. Ruben Cotter is starting at prop this weekend, not Griffin Neame. Neame is coming off the bench this weekend. I mean, McLean and Cotter were absolutely brilliant in 2022 and 2023 as a forward pack pairing, or starting front row pairing, I should say. So 225, ladies and gentlemen, get on it. North Queensland Cowboys 13 plus. The second game on Friday night footy emanates from Accor Stadium. South Sydney Rabbitohs host the Brisbane Broncos. On Sportsbet, the South Sydney Rabbitohs are $2.40. The Broncos are $1.58 favourites. There is a sniff in the air about this game. The Broncos, they're not in form. They should be too good for South Sydney, though. That defence still, while they only leaked the 2 tries last weekend against the Titans, it still remains to be seen that they haven't or have turned a corner defensively. But I'll tell you what, just let me indulge myself, let me indulge towards you all for a moment. If there is one team, and we see it every year, where the second half of the season starts and then one team skyrockets towards the top 8. If there is one team that can do it and might do it, knowing that Wayne Bennett is coming in next year and they're all going to need and want, they're all going to be wanting to put their best foot forward, it might be the South Sydney Rabbitohs. I know they beat the Titans and they sort of had a really hard victory against the Parramatta Eels a week or so ago. 2 weeks ago, I should say. So I'm not saying the Rabbitohs are back, but I don't know, man. They're playing a lot better. They've scored 40 points in their past 2 games now, and this Broncos side, we're going to see how good South Sydney might be this Friday night. Now, for team lists, Cameron Murray returns to South Sydney, but he'll be starting off the bench in jersey 16. Unfortunately, Havili, I think, has succumbed to a calf injury. Meanwhile, for the Brisbane Broncos, Xavier Willison drops Fletcher Baker to the reserves, and there's just a bit of an injury cloud under Corey Oates, so maybe young Karapani will be a late inclusion. I'm going to tip the Broncos, but for some reason, there's something niggling in the back of my mind that maybe South Sydney might cause an upset. And obviously, their turnaround in fortunes have come when they have partnered Whiten and Walker together, something that was cried out for as soon as Lachlan Ilias went down or was dropped. And, you know, look what's happened. So the customer is sometimes right, aren't they? But there's a sniff about South Sydney in this game. And if they do happen to beat the Broncos, I think some teams should be really looking behind their shoulders at the red and green, because if there's one team that can do it, and they haven't shown much to suggest it, but except for their attacking plays, not defensive plays, but if there's one team that can do it, it'll be South Sydney. But in any event, I'm going to tip the Brisbane Broncos 1-12. Super Saturday, game number 1 is from Leichhardt Oval. The West Tigers host the Gold Coast Titans. The Titans are coming into the game as favourites, $1.60, whereas the West Tigers are $2.35. The Titans, I think they have won 2 games in a row or 3 games in a row against the Tigers at Tigers home venues. I think they're on a 2-game win streak against the Tigers at Leichhardt. And then they've also beaten the Tigers recently at Campbelltown. The Titans don't fear playing the Tigers away from home, that is for sure. For the Titans, there is only one team change, and that is Philip Sami comes in. That means Beau Fermor plays in his natural position at second row. Therefore, Jacob Arlick is the man that drops out of the 1-17. For the West Tigers, Abby Coruscant and Aiden Caesar will be the halves pairing this Saturday. Off the bench, it's a small looking bench to me, man. Solomon Atape is in jersey number 17. Alex Seyfarth is coming off the bench in 14. He's not small, but they're working with a small interchange, in my opinion. And young Talent De Silva is the man that will come in for Abby Coruscant in the hooker position. He's got a bit of go in him. He does have a bit of go in him. I like him. Brent Naden and Justin Olam will be the centre pairing this week. And that's pretty much about it. Just quickly as well, Adam Dewey, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name. Adam Dewey, he has been named in jersey 23, but I do believe that Benji Marshall did say that he won't be returning to first grade this weekend. It will probably be inside the next week or two, but not this weekend. But you never know. You never know. I'm going to tip the Gold Coast Titans here. They have a bigger forward pack. I know they got crunched by the South Sydney Rabbitohs last weekend in a really, really disappointing performance. Definitely their worst effort since the first month of the season, that's for sure. Whereas for the West Tigers, look, they're absolutely a sniff in this game against the Titans. They played that first 20 minutes against the Dragons was really good quality footy from the Tigers. I really enjoyed the way they played against the Dragons last weekend, but then that second half was as diabolical as they come, to be honest with you. I'm going to go the Gold Coast Titans here. They do have a recent run of form against the Tigers away from home. They got a bigger forward pack. David Fafita's got to, if he wants his Origin jersey, he's got to go absolutely bananas in this game. Oh man, I don't know. I don't know. There's a feeling Tigers could get it, but I'm going to stick with the Gold Coast Titans in this game. The second game on Super Saturday, in my opinion, will be the game of the round. The New Zealand Warriors versus the Melbourne Storm. If it's anything like their first encounter in round 2 of this season, we're in for a classic. On Sportsbet, the Storm are very slight favourites at $1.87. The Warriors right now are $1.97. You probably would imagine that it will be even Stevens come kickoff. For the Storm, there's only one change after they won a pretty tight, high-scoring affair at Amy Park against the Knights this past Sunday, 36-28. It is Remus Smith who is out with concussion. That means Dean Eremaya is in at centre. For the Warriors, there's not too many changes after they spanked the Cowboys last weekend, except for Sean Johnson, who is coming back in to play halfback. Tamari Martin is at 5'8". Chance Nuku-Klukstar remains at the fullback position. And keep your eye on Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who has been named, I think it's jersey number 20, but he's been named on the reserves list. The Warriors have not defeated the Melbourne Storm since the year 2015. I think the time is nigh. I think the Warriors looked so professional. They were merciless, but they weren't. I don't know. Like they were so good last weekend, the Warriors, and against this Storm side, who I don't know, man. I know they've got Pappenhausen and Cameron Munster out at the moment. Their defense doesn't impress me this year. I'm not sold on Melbourne Storm being a premiership threat. I think they're going to be a nuisance come September. Preliminary final, I think they can do that. But as far as being a team that plays on grand final day, even winning the comp, I'm not sold on the Storm. But then again, we're really yet to see Pappenhausen and Munster and the full team really go about their business. They've been so unlucky with injuries, but this Warriors side, man, they're coming for the top 8. It took them a little while, but they're coming, and I think they absolutely put everyone on notice when they win against the Melbourne Storm 1-12. They can't let this one go. I think this is such an important game for the Warriors. They've got the team. They're just about at full strength. They can beat the Melbourne Storm based off of last weekend's performances from both sides. Come on, New Zealand Warriors. The last game on Super Saturday is from CommBank Stadium. The Parramatta Eels versus the Sydney Roosters. The Parramatta Eels sit at $2.71, whereas the Roosters are $1.47. The team list changes for the Parramatta Eels. Wiramu Greg is out. Makatoa is in. Sivo also returns, and that pushes Arcee into jersey number 14. And for the Sydney Roosters, back the truck up. All their origin stars are back. Leniu, Tedesco, Crichton. However, the omission is Brandon Smith. It is a punishment for missing a mid-season review. So that sees Brandon Smith out. I don't want to say disappointed by Parramatta, but the mid-game injuries to the Dogs really should have lit a spark up for Parramatta. Also, the fact that they were down a man. It was an incredible game and a remarkable fight back from Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. So Parramatta Eels, I just thought they played, they clocked off, they played way too cute, they got way too excited, and they didn't capitalise in that 10-minute period where the Dogs were down a man. Meanwhile, the Roosters, they're coming off a loss to the Cowboys and a bye, sandwiched in between that, so they're going to be fired up, and I'm going to go the Sydney Roosters to win 1-12. But these games over the past few years have been pretty dramatic. They've been pretty rock solid, so I think this will be entertaining. The Eels are back at CommBank. They're a different side at CommBank, so I will say the Roosters, though, will win this game 1-12. Now into the Sunday ticket games. Game number 1 might turn out to be the game of the round. Like, leading into it, it isn't the game of the round, but this could end up being a beauty. The Sea Eagles versus the Dragons. However, though, if it's anything like their previous encounter in 2024, it might be an absolute basket case of a contest. The Sea Eagles are coming into the game as $1.47 favourites, whereas the Dragons are $2.69. The Dragons, they are unchanged after their big win against the West Tigers last Friday night. Meanwhile, for the Sea Eagles, they went down to Penrith in a very competitive game for about 50 or so minutes. And there's only one change. Josh Aloiai has himself a trip for about 2 or 3 weeks there. Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful trip on Dane Laurie. Therefore, Ethan Bullymore comes in for him. That's the worst trip you've ever seen. It was disgraceful. The last time these two sides met was in Wollongong earlier this year. Manly could not complete a set to save themselves, and then the Dragons said, that looks like fun for some reason, and it just turned into a drop-a-thon. It was an awful game of footy earlier this season, but the Dragons did get the upset win. They are the bogey side against this Sea Eagles outfit, and you'd say they are the more informed team against the Manly Sea Eagles, in comparison to the Sea Eagles, I should say. The Sea Eagles seem to get up against the teams that are above them, or equated to be above them, and they're a weird team. Manly, they then punch down to opposition teams. They play at the same level as opposition teams, and I think the last time Manly played at 4 Pines Park, it resulted in that loss against the Canberra Raiders. I think that's the last time they played at 4 Pines Park. So you'd reckon that they would be pretty fired up for this. This is a very difficult game to tip. I'm sort of leaning towards the Dragons in this game. But the Dragons themselves, I mean, 1 week they're leaking 40, nearly leaking 50. The next, they are scoring 50, almost 60. I'm going to go Sea Eagles here. They're at home. I think they want to repay the faithful for that loss against the Raiders. But I can't blame you if you're picking the Dragons here this weekend. The final game of round 15 is from McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. The Knights host the Panthers. Penrith are $1.25. Newcastle are $4. The team list changes. The Newcastle Knights, they welcome back Bradman Best into the centres. That means Dylan Lucas will play from the interchange, and Daniel Saifidi also returns this weekend. For the Penrith Panthers, Liam Martin has been named on the reserves list. Maybe he'll be a late inclusion, but the big incision in this game is Dylan Edwards is back, and he was named on the reserves last weekend, only days after, or a week after, suffering a suspected quad injury. Oh, man. Everybody said that Dylan Edwards probably would have played through the pain to play for the New South Wales Blues the week before, and they did the right thing by not playing him, but gee whiz, man. If he plays in a grand final with a broken foot, and if he's already back from a suspected quad injury, like, this bloke, he's shooting up there as one of my all-time favourites, eh? He's just an absolutely remarkable player. Dylan Edwards is back. Speaking of remarkable, did you all see what Brian Toto did this past weekend? Holy shit. Brian Toto went absolutely berserk. Credit to the Newcastle Knights. That was their best performance, just about their best performance of the year, even though it was in a losing effort against the Storm. That's more like it. That was a hell of a lot better performance, and I think Greg Marzhew can count his lucky stars that he's playing in this game, and it's not young Armstrong that's taking over his spot on the wing. In any event, I'm going to tip the Penrith Panthers to win this game 1-12. Yo guys, thank you very much for the continuous support. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a very nice weekend, and please stay tuned for some live watch-alongs, commentary, live streams with me and All Out Club, Dor from All Out Club, this Thursday night, Sharks and Dolphins. I'll be around for the Raiders and Cowboys as well, and Warriors and Storm looks very, very nice as well. Thank you again for the support. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you. Take care. Adios.